On behalf of the WCCF, I would like to welcome you all to this first session of our nonprofit leadership and engagement series entitled Crafting a Winning Grant Proposal. We had a fantastic response. We've been talking about this for the last 20 minutes. Approximately 90 registrants for the session today, which is fantastic. And I'm Alicia Walls, the Chief Operating Officer here at the Washington County Community Foundation, and I'm going to be serving as moderator. We have a wonderful group of seasoned funders with us today. So thanks so much for their time and expertise. And they include Audric Dodds, Director of Community Relations and Strategic Partnerships at CNX Foundation, Erica Fisher, VP of Human Resources and Communications at CONSOL Energy. Erica very kindly stepped in for Kurt Salvatore, who had a last minute conflict. So we're really grateful that she was able to do this at the last minute. Elizabeth Guerreri, Vice President in Marketing and Public Relations Manager at Washington Financial Bank. Christina Kramer, Community Relations Manager at Range Resources. Ellen Rossi, President of the EQT Foundation, and Betsy True, President and CEO of the WCCF. So just before we get started, a little bit of general housekeeping. The session is being recorded. The recording and the handouts will be available on the WCCF website later, so you can look for those then. And since we have such a large number of participants, we ask that you please keep your mic on mute and make use of the chat feature if you have something to share. Questions are welcome at any time, and we've allocated a nice block of time for questions at the very end after our panelists have all had an opportunity to speak. So we will be able to address your questions at that point. I'll monitor the chat throughout our time together, and if there is a question posed that is relevant at a certain time, I'll be sure to advance it then. And then we do also encourage you to share your name and organization when you pose your question. That way we can let our panelists know who is originated the question. I'm going to send out in the chat right now to you the funding organization overview. It was part of the message that you got yesterday with the link for the session, just so you can follow along with the funding priorities for each of our funders. It's a really helpful resource. And then as far as format goes, we're going to give each of our grant makers a few minutes to discuss their programs, and then we'll move on to the Q&A at the end. We'll go in the order of appearance on that handout, which is alphabetical by funding organization. So Audric, we're going to start with you.
All right. Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me well?
Yep, perfect.
All right. Good, good, good. Can I share my screen? Is that? Oh, no, can't do that.
I can enable that for you. Give me just 1 second. All right, go ahead and try that now, Audric.
Hey, there it is. Are folks able to see my screen?
No.
Oh, no. Here we go.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay,
There we go. Got it. All right.
We got it.
All right. So I think where to start. So a little bit about CNX Foundation. It's been around for a little over almost, it's not quite 2 years yet, but we made a commitment to invest $5 million a year over the next 6 years in our local community. And then, local communities are defined kind of by, things in our operational footprint. So Washington, Greene, Westmoreland counties, but we do also focus on the city of Pittsburgh and underserved communities in Pittsburgh and also in our operational footprint. For me, I've learned a lot about, philanthropy and grant writing. Ellen Rossi is taught me pretty much everything I know about this stuff, because I was with her on the foundation and she used to make me read this books of all the grants that get submitted to us. It was like my homework, and it was like, how did I end up with this lovely chore? But I did, and I kind of learned the process from my time on their board. And what I wanted to do when I got here to CNX is to create something that took the best of what they do, and then my lack of a desire to read all that stuff and kind of distill it down and make it easy for you guys, and make it easier for me to evaluate what a good grant request would be as it pertains to kind of what CNX is trying to do, right? So we came up with this formula. I think you'll see a lot in when we talk about ESG, our environmental, social, and governance strategies. We talk about tangible, impactful, local with our ESG. And I thought it made a lot of sense for us to tie that into our foundation. So I kind of built this slide that talks about what that is, right? So certain things are very heavily weighted. So when you're applying for a grant at CNX, things that are heavily rated, tangibility, and for us, tangible and then impactful, like they kind of sometimes they feel like they're similar, but they're not. Right. So the things on the top line are very highly rated, right? So we actually have a formula. CNX is full of engineers. I had an engineer that was working for me. He created a formula. This stuff equates to a numerical score. This is about 75% of the things that we care about. If it's tangible, impactful, local. The other additional consideration, the 25%, you can see on the screen, but tangibility, things that are real, right? I have to be able to see it. I have to be able to feel it. It's direct, it's visible. Those people, organizations running programming that we can, know it when you see it, that it's happening, and we don't have to think about, all right, well, how is it happening? It's very apparent to everyone that what we're funding is actually indeed happening. Impactful then is like the scope and the breadth of it. Like we had a debate in my office here the other day about impactful, and everything is impactful, right? If I buy a truck or an ATV that goes out and saves a guy's life because he ended up off road, that is impactful. It's impactful to his family. It's impactful to everyone. But what I'm talking about is like how many of those impacts can we have? So it's not just impactful in that it is important. It's how big is it? How scalable is it? And so the more scalable, because what are we trying to do? We're trying to support our region, our communities, and we want to help as best as we can. It is only $30 million. So, we're not the Heinz Foundation. So we got to be very strategic with our dollars, and we want to create impacts in our community. And then it may be, while your programming could be like impactful for the 20 people you serve, we're looking to serve 200,000 people if we can, right? So impact that way. And then from a local perspective, very easy. Our operational footprint, the communities that are adjacent to it, and then those rural and urban communities that I spoke of. And then the additional, so like, if you want to, catch my eye, that's what you got to do, right? You got to, think about these things. That's, this aligns with our corporation's kind of philosophy. So our foundation aligns with the corporate philosophy, and we want to be as good as we can possibly be when it comes to ESG. So that's how we're doing it. We tie it directly to this concept of tangible, impactful, and local. And then I have. Well, I don't have that. Let's see, where is it? Just so you know, like I said, like the engineer built this, right? So we have a system. We score things based on those criteria. Things that we think are very tangible, they get max points. And then, we go from there, and we do that across the tangible, impactful, local. And then we have a secondary form that we use to measure those other things. So it's a very straightforward process. Like if you're in our local footprint, you get max score. If you're not, you don't. Like it's not. We tried to make it a little bit easier for folks to kind of score. And then what I do is what we manage then are the since everyone has kind of agreed that this is the way we're going to do it, 80 is the score. You hit an 80, and unless there's something that's out of alignment, you are funded. If you're under 80, you're not funded. But there are moments where we will make exceptions, and that's what I manage, right? I manage things that the stuff that scores highly that we don't approve, and then the stuff that scores low, that they're a little bit lower, that we do want to approve. We take that to our board and I will discuss it, and then if we all agree, we'll say yes. So that's our formula for how we do it. It's not cold, but it is. I work with a bunch of engineers. It's a fact-based system, right? Like, if it doesn't, if it don't add up, it's not. We're not doing it. So So that's kind of how we built what we do here.
Thanks, Audrey. We appreciated that behind the scenes peek at your rubric system. I see you're using Submittable. We just started using that at the WCCF and really excited about it.
Yep.
So moving on, Erica, would you give us a little information about what you guys do over at Consult?
Sure. Well, good afternoon and thank you first and foremost to the Washington County Community Foundation for hosting today's educational session. I mean, how wonderful is it to be amongst this group of such passionate individuals. I trust today's educational session will be encouraging to all of you and hopefully provide some suggestions on crafting a winning grant proposal. Like Audrey, we also use the submittable form. The Consult Cares Foundation was established in 2019, and it was we wanted to positively impact the communities in which we live and work. And most recently, we announced our meaningful partnership with the Ronald McDonald House Charities of Pittsburgh and Morgantown.
Yeah.
So we are thrilled to partner with those folks and do great things. Today, actually, we are championing putting together welcome bags for the families who stay at the local houses. So I'm excited to participate in that actually after this session. So I wanted to touch a little bit on the storytelling aspect of the submissions and how we take a look at it. So every nonprofit organization, program, project has a compelling story behind it, just waiting to be told, right? Each of you have that story and you're just waiting to get it out there, put it down on a piece of paper. So crafting your story in a way that will engage a funder and make them realize how their partnership will make an impact is key. So remember, many foundations, I know the Consult Cares Foundation, we review sometimes on an ad hoc basis, but generally on a quarterly basis. And so you want to make sure that this compelling story is told in such a way, keeping in mind that the competition for funds is often great. And then here's a shocker, okay? Most foundations or grant makers want to know that they are making a difference with their funds. Shocker, right? So it's really important to show the impact that your work specifically will have on your community. So now this is key. The one thing that I've learned through this process, reviewing grant submissions, is that don't expect anyone to fill in the gaps or guess at any details. How you present your plan is exactly how it will read. So you want to make sure that you're focusing in on those. Don't leave out any gaps and definitely focus on those details. Okay, so now we talked about that compelling story, getting that down on paper. How do you transform your project into a story that really engages the reader or the funder who's making that decision? First, consider the why. Why is my nonprofit engaged in this work in the first place, right? Why was your organization established? And once you have that why, you can really start to begin to tell that story. And then you can move on to the how. How will your organization achieve success with your project? How will your project make a tangible impact? So you really want to make sure as you're writing these that you're taking the reader on a logical, progressive journey, culminating in how supporting how this support will help advance the vital work that your organization is engaged in. One thing I want to touch on is that, try to avoid that copy and paste boilerplate language in some of the grants. Citing data or results from other similar projects can also be helpful. That helps us understand why you see your project as important and necessary. And then I'm curious, we can maybe talk about this in the Q&A part with the other panelists, but I often like to see when there are proposals that incorporate other names and other amounts of committed or other funders who are supporting the project or the plan into the future, because frankly, these types of projects that are managed by nonprofits rarely rely on just one grant to operate. And so I like to see that, because that shows me and our board that you have, or at least you're working to create diverse revenue streams to really support your project's work. With that, I would recommend including all funding sources, which would include your volunteer hours, your in-kind donations, any sponsorships or other grants that you may have. So in closing, I'll wrap it up here. Please let me just encourage you. If you receive a rejection letter, there could simply be mission misalignment. So at times, your proposal may not just be a good fit, right? It may not fit with that foundation's mission or goals, and there just might be misalignment. Use that rejection letter as a tool and an encourager. Your project is still valid. So again, I appreciate your time and attention, and thank you so much.
Thanks, Erica. I love that you touched on the storytelling elements. That's such an important concept. We've been promoting at the Community Foundation for a long time, and I'm glad that you guys use that as well. So moving on, Ellen, why don't you talk a little bit about the EQT Foundation?
Sure thing. Hi, good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here and spending your lunch hour with us. Really appreciate your time and interest in learning a little bit more. So EQT, of course, we are a natural gas company. Actually, our foundation is celebrating our 20th anniversary in 2023. So over the years, we have given about $74 million to nonprofits since we started way back in 2003. At EQT, there's actually two ways to get money. There's the corporation and the foundation. So the corp, we have about $1 million that we're planning to give this year. And then the foundation, the budget this year is $3.75 million. Generally, if we're going to give to a 501c3, we're going to do that through the foundation. There's more money there to be had, and the dollar in the reach will go a little bit further. What we can't do, of course, through the foundation is really speak about the corporation. So if there is a chance or an opportunity for us that we want to have more of an opportunity to talk about EQT and our business operations, that money will then come via the corp. Interestingly, in 2022, we received through the foundation 50% more grant requests than we did in 2021. I just found it to be an interesting stat, and I'm not sure if that means that some federal money is no longer there, or if there's just more nonprofits looking for other funding resources and our name is coming back up on the list. But I also think it speaks to how strong the nonprofits are right now, and the programs that they are doing and the communities that they're serving are in great need right now. So keep up the good work, everybody here. And like Erica was saying, if it's a no from one of us, then you're going to get yeses from other places. So in 2022, EQT actually moved to a practice of trust-based philanthropy. And maybe some of you have been hearing about that in circles, but it's sort of a trend within philanthropy now, and it really speaks more to equity and allowing nonprofits really to focus on the work that they do, and taking away some of that, we are the funder, do what we say, you need to fit into our square peg as your round hole organization. So because of that, like at EQT, we streamlined our application. So the process to apply is no longer so intense. We're not requiring you to attach an audit. We're not requiring you to attach a conflict of interest policy anymore. Just simply wanting to know if you have those things as a best practice. And if you need help in getting some of those things, we'll help you to figure out how to do that. I've also eliminated our formal grant reports at the end of funding because it was always very hard to figure out like what a food bank does is different than what like the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy does. And trying to equate everybody on the same lines was just tricky. So I'm not going to talk really about how to write a good request. I'm going to talk about the like, now you got the money, now what kind of conversation. And for that, I feel like there's a couple big things to hit on. So be organized in what you want when you receive the money. Do you need a logo from us? Do you need an ad? Do you need a press release quote? Do you need speaking, somebody from the company to come and speak? Do you need help crafting social media posts? Like all that stuff that you may need initially, like besides the actual check, like figure out what all that stuff is and let's talk about getting all those things done and out of the way. It's just like, it's our to-do list of got to get you my logo, got to get you this, got to get you that. So let's be on the same page as we start that process. I don't necessarily need or want, and maybe others here on the panel do, like a formal acknowledgement letter. I feel like it takes time from your organization to write this like really nice letter and put it in an envelope and send it to me. Save yourself the stamp, just send me an email that says like, got the check, thanks. And that's it, right? Because the acknowledgement letters, again, I'd be curious to know what other people are doing with those, but save yourself the time and it's not needed, truly. And then like, really the key here is communication between the partners. So you got the check, we got all the stuff. Now let's plan together. Like, what else do you need? Do you need volunteers? Let's come up with that. Is there a thing that can be done? I'm sure we all, as companies here, have employees who want to do volunteering. So let's come up with that initially. Let's get the date on the calendar. Let's get it booked. Let's get it going. Do you need connection to other people? Do you not know the other people who are on this panel or other funders? We all sort of know one another, or it's like 1 degree of separation that you can figure out who some of those other people are. Use the contacts that you have with your current funders to get you connected to other potential funders. And I feel like it's our role as funders to give you those other connections. We want to make sure that you're successful more than anything. Do you need help in some of the PR? Do you need help in brainstorming of how to promote us, how to promote yourselves, whatever? We generally all have some level of expertise in that area, and we can help to come up with those plans. And then what I learned from COVID was that like stuff happens, and I'm sure that none of us were planning for that pandemic to happen. So what it really taught me was that like nonprofits were freaked out, and they went to their funders and they were nervous. People were apprehensive to reach out and say, we can't do the thing now that you gave us the money to do. And I felt caused a lot of unnecessary stress. We're all people, we were all going through it, and never feel uncomfortable to call your funder and say, that thing we wanted to do, it can't happen, or it's not going the way we wanted it to. Let's come up with a way to pivot. Oh, I hate that word, but pivot together and and change what you thought you were going to do from the onset. But the key is to stay in touch with your funder. And I will also say that like, this is a small community, Southwestern PA. And we all sort of talk to one another and we all know what's going on. I never want to hear something about some organization that we funded from another partner that person didn't fulfill what they were going to do. And then I have to call and have an uncomfortable conversation with the funder to say, you said you were going to do that thing. And then I talked to the partner that you were supposed to be partnering with, and they said you weren't going to do that thing. So always just be transparent and open with everybody. We all appreciate that very much. So I went quickly, but I just thought I'd take a different turn of it.
Thanks, Ellen. I think so much of what funders do and what they look for happens in those conversations. We talk about this a lot at the Community Foundation. There's so much to be said for that. So thanks for really highlighting that in your comments. So Christy, we're moving on to you.
I better unmute.
You'd think I would learn by now. Hi, everyone. I'm Chrissy Kramer, Community Relations Manager at Range Resources. I am so honored to be in such good company on this panel today, and the audience. In my position, I'm constantly inspired by the work all of you do in our local communities. So thank you so much for everything you're doing. Super happy to be here. I'm kind of the odd man out because I don't have a foundation. We're all corporate giving. So a little bit unique there, but I loved everything that Audric and Erica and Ellen have said so far. So ditto to them. But at Range, we're committed to supporting the well-being of the communities where we operate and where our team members live and work. So our philanthropic strategy centers around the municipalities where we host our operations, and most of that footprint is in Washington County. At Range, our goal is to establish and maintain long-term relationships with nonprofits and the people involved doing the important work, including a wide variety of causes within our communities. We understand that community needs change from year to year, so we're flexible on what types of programs and projects we support each year, and we know it's going to look a little bit different from year to year. A major part of our company culture is employee engagement within our communities. So in addition to the company making monetary donations through our corporate giving program, our senior management really encourages our employees to go out there and volunteer with our nonprofit partners. We have a really cool volunteer incentive program that we just started in 2022 where employees can earn cash towards a nonprofit of their choice. So for every hour that a Range employee is volunteering in the community, they get $25 in a bank. So if they volunteer 20 hours at the end of the year, someone from my team reaches out to them and says, hey, you have $500. Where do you want this money to go? And they get to pick their nonprofit. So really cool incentive program and something that we're really pushing from the top down at Range. We not only want to give back traditionally through grants, but we really want to link up arm in arm with our community and nonprofit leaders to make our communities better and to reach the people who are in need. So I'll share a couple quick examples of what I'm talking about. I know my friends from Domestic Violence Services of Southwest PA are on, and I did give them fair warning yesterday. We met with them that I was going to use them as an example. But in addition to supporting its programs through an annual sponsorship, our employee volunteers spent nearly 100 hours last year planning, designing, and renovating the common living area in their Washington Safe House. This was super impactful to our employees. They really loved it. So this year we're establishing a formal partnership between DVSSP and our women's resource group at Range. It's called Renew, and it's going to be a 3-year partnership, and we're digging into more projects and needs of the organization and its clients. So we're really excited about that. Another really good example is our partnership with the City Mission. We wanted to think outside of the box with our support. So in addition to funding programs and improvements and equipment needs in the shelter, we wanted to have fun with the residents and really bring something special. So in 2018, we had our Range versus City Mission softball game. And this year we also added a bowling day where our employees and some of the residents got together to bowl for an afternoon. These events really have a positive impact on the residents. We get to see it and feel it ourselves. And in addition to providing opportunities, it also provides opportunities for our employees to learn about the City Mission and see firsthand the impact that the City Mission has on people facing homelessness and addiction in our community. So I could go on. I mean, all these friendly faces on this panel, we have so many great partnerships. If I start ticking your names off, I know I'm going to miss somebody, but those are just 2 examples that I wanted to share. But we have so many really strong partnerships with our nonprofits here in the area. So, I mean, for us, a Dynamite grant proposal is really way more than just a piece of paper. It's a willingness to want to partner with us in more than just a transactional way. A great grant proposal will come with an invitation to show us what your organization does and ideas for how we can help further your mission. A willingness to sit down with us so that we can each learn about each other's organizations, people involved and where it would make the most sense for us to partner. So maybe there's gaps or needs beyond just a monetary donation where we can help. Like I said, we're a corporate donor, so a lot of times with foundations, there's special rules, especially with government grants. You could only use it for specific things. Maybe there's something with an unrestricted grant, we could fill a gap. But maybe you're looking for volunteers, which, as I said, is super important to us and helps us fulfill our goals as a company as well. Do you need help with a special project, a board member, a committee member? Do you need our help in telling your story to our primary audiences? Loved how Erica touched on the stories. So anything like that, we're super interested in hearing about. But to kind of help on the homework front, what to actually write down on your grant proposal. So ditto what Audric said, loved his slide, but we're looking for specifics and data as it relates to impact. Who are you reaching? Where are they locating? What need are you fulfilling? It's great to see if your organization is fulfilling a specific need that others aren't, and that you're coordinating with other nonprofits to reach more people and sort of backing each other up. And also what Erica said, diverse funding base. We want to see that you have a diverse funding base, and maybe there are some other donors who are already tied into the organization and covering certain parts of a project. On the need, please be specific as possible. Certain items needed for programming or actual supplies needed, what exactly those costs are in a cost breakdown, because often at Range, we like to make a grant that covers the cost of specific items or activities. This is another theme everybody was talking about, showing your proven track record of success. Or if you're a new organization, again, showing how you're fulfilling a need or a cause that isn't covered by other organizations within your service area. And I'll circle back to partnerships because I cannot emphasize enough. We strive to make grants to nonprofits who are willing to welcome us in as a partner as well, beyond the monetary donation. And finally, this goes back to kind of what Ellen was talking about with trust-based philanthropy. We know that each organization is unique as it relates to bandwidth, employees, volunteers, size of the organization, access to technology, or whatever your limitation may be. So Range provides a really personal experience with accepting grant proposals. We accept them on a rolling basis throughout the year, with the exception of our First Responders Fund through the Washington County Community Foundation. Thank you, WCCF.
Thanks for the plug.
A plug. Yes, it's coming out soon. If you know any first responders, I didn't see any on the list, but if within your communities, please encourage your first responders to apply. But we do have a grant application form we generally send to brand new partners or partners who are existing but have a brand new project. But we accept grant requests in writing. We accept them in person, over the phone, in a conference room, over a brainstorming session, however it best works out. And we want to get to know you and your organization to help us make the best decision for our company. And we actually have a panel of employees from all different levels of the company, different departments, who review grant requests of $1,500 and above, and they weigh in to help make the final decisions. Because again, we want it to be a team effort, both internally at Range. We want our employees to buy into the good work that our nonprofits are doing in the community, be excited that the company that they are working for is helping further the mission of these nonprofits. And we also want to team up with all of you. So again, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for all you're doing in the communities. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Thanks, Chrissy. So I think we're starting to notice some themes here: efficiency, impact, communications, relationships. So switching gears from energy, we're going to get a perspective from our friends in banking. Now with Betty, if you want to talk about what's happening at Washington Financial.
Sure, I will. Thank you, everybody. I'm Betty Guerreri at Washington Financial. As Betsy and I talked earlier, I'm the oldest one of the group for sure. But Washington Financial is a mutual organization. So because we don't have shareholders, we invest a portion of our profits back into the community, and we do it in a couple of ways. We have some things that go through the bank, and those are smaller things like sponsorships, dinners, that kind of thing. And then we developed our foundation to support larger charitable initiatives. So that also multi-year funding requests go through that foundation. Primary grant focus for us, 3 major areas: health and human service, community development, education. Those are the three primary areas of giving. Not to say we don't do things other than that, but that's what our focus has been. One of the primary aspects of the foundation, to go through the foundation as with others, you have to have 501c3 or designated nonprofit status. We don't provide support for operating expenses through that. And we also do something different through the foundation. We provide challenge grants. A lot of times organizations they have a project that they're thinking of, right? But they don't have everything together. So, but they have a pretty good plan for it. So we'll offer a challenge grant. So as they further that process, they know they have that to count on once they raise some other funding to help support it. That also helps organizations who have a more formal process, but are looking to get others on board. So they'll say, well, I've got X committed from the Washington Financial Charitable Foundation. We've been around for a long time. And so I think that carries a little bit of significance that if we're willing to partner, it's sometimes easier for organizations to get others to join as well. Our grant application process is easy. A couple of things that we look for, and I'll go into some hints when we get through it. But when we're looking at the focus through our Community Reinvestment Act, we're really looking at how a project benefits low and moderate income individuals and families. So when we get that request, our CRA officer generally will reach out, but a lot of times this information is already included. So the number of families, individuals in a lower moderate income area that this project will benefit. And then the percentage of any contribution we make, how it would go to impact that group. We also look at school districts in the footprint of that organization as we're looking at total funding. A part of our program, so we kind of have a threefold program. In addition to the grant focus, we also have a scholarship program. I know there's some educators on here, and maybe just some of us who have students entering school, or so we have a pretty robust scholarship program for Washington Financial employees, customers, for students entering their first year of an accredited post-secondary education. And that focus again is on financial need, grade potential, but also community service. So we look to score those based on the same areas of service that are important to the bank: health and human service, community development, and education. The third sort of component is that we also have an EITC focus. That program, we're looking to fund initiatives that support the whole STEAM process of initiatives: science, technology, engineering, arts, math. Again, for low and moderate income school districts, that's basically the primary focus. Finally, as we look at what's helpful when you're completing the grant applications. So again, our application's online, but it doesn't have to be. I had someone just yesterday call and say they couldn't do it online, so we just send it to them. But we have a very straightforward application process. But what I'll say first and foremost is ask for what you need. We have a funding guideline that we typically won't go over 50% of a total project, because like the others who've spoken, we want to see that you have support from others as well. But a lot of times organizations will call and say, well, I don't know what to ask for. And I always have the same answer: ask for what you need, because we're never going to say, because we can't fund X, we won't do Y. So be specific again in your narrative. And we've touched on this. Include as much specific information as you can about your project, not necessarily about your organization, because we're probably pretty familiar with what the organization does. Because as I looked through that list of recipients, we've had communication many, many, many times with everyone. And so be specific about what that specific project is, and how it's going to benefit low or moderate income individuals. And when you're including a budget, say you're asking us for $30,000. If you can be specific as to what those funds are going to go toward, that's really helpful as when we review that. If you are planning a capital campaign, if you're planning to purchase equipment, if you can get cost estimates ahead of submitting that grant application and include those, that's very helpful as we review it. Again, and we've touched on this with everyone, include your other funding sources, and include whether they have committed, whether they're just under review, what you've asked for, because we want to see that whatever funding we provide, you're able to secure additional funding and have that project come into fruition. What I would avoid in that is a lot of times I'll see just fundraising as a general category. So if we can be specific there, that's helpful as we And then again, include as much information as you possibly can as to the statistics you have on how your organization benefits those lower moderate income individuals in our footprint. So we are Washington County, Southern Allegheny County. So that's our typical footprint focus. So how your organization meets the needs of individuals that are in the lower or moderate income areas is helpful. What happens typically is once we receive the request, our CRA officer, Sandy Samples, will reach out to that organization to just talk with them and get some specifics on what information they might have, recognizing that all of you probably don't have access to that, but we always have that conversation. And then just as kind of our review process, we, for grants, are a quarterly review, but we meet the month after the quarter ends. So we typically ask for things the first week of the last month in the quarter, so that I have time to kind of review them, see if we're missing anything as we go through our review process. Our review process is pretty straightforward. I mean, everybody that reviews them, all our senior people, all our board, we're all local people. So there's not a lot of explanation we have to do as we look at them because everyone is in the community. But I received the request, our senior management reviews that initially. It goes to a small committee, a charitable contributions committee of our board, and then finally to our board of trustees, the board of directors now because of the Washington Financial Charitable Foundation. So that's how the process goes. It's typically, you know, again, a couple of weeks in between the time that the first review starts to the actual board meeting. But what I would say most of all is, as I sort of wrap up my comments, is as you're completing it, I encourage you to talk to us. Anytime you have just an idea or a thought of a project that you want to talk about to see if it's even something we'd consider funding, I encourage you to call me, email me. We can sit down and talk about it ahead of time. As you're completing that application, absolutely call me. And so we can talk through any questions you have. And I think we're gonna probably have to, we have some requirements on that list of additional information we need, which I always say now, honestly, the only thing I really need is your nonprofit status, because I need to send that to my accounting department so they can verify that you are a nonprofit. But just in closing, we're so grateful to be part of this community. We're so grateful to be part of the work that all of you are doing and to partner with you. Grateful to Betsy for all her help. That's why we're a big supporter of WCCF Gives, because it helps so many charities. So that's why we participate in that match. We're very passionate about that. And so we just want to help, and we're here to talk through those things, answer questions, and help in any way we can. So
Thanks, Betty.
the work.
That's great. So again, add to your list now, buzzword, details, get specific when you're putting those requests together. All right, Betsy, and you're going to bring things home for us.
So, all right, so I'm gonna, first of all, I want to publicly thank all of our panelists. I want to shout out to Financial for WCCF Gives, our very first sponsor for that program 10 years ago. First $25,000 in the door every year without fail. They have supported that. Our request for this year is on its way. Betty.
We're waiting for it, Betsy.
Yeah, just so you know. So we at the Community Foundation, we wear both hats. And I have had the pleasure of working with everybody. Well, technically not Erica, but I've worked with Erica's organization in different roles where the foundation was a grantee of theirs, or we partnered with them to be a help fund some project, that type of thing. So we've had longstanding relationships with all of these organizations. And I will tell you, when we decided we wanted to kick off this year with this Meet the Grantmaker session, I contacted 5 organizations, and there are the 5 organizations that you see represented here today, and without fail, they all said yes. So thank you to everyone who was willing to take time out of their day over lunch to share best practices for their foundations. At the Community Foundation, we have lots of different grant opportunities, and those are detailed on our website. They have deadlines and things like that. They are, for the most part, I would say smaller opportunities. What I want to talk about today are our 2 capacity building grant cycles for the year. We started doing capacity building grants a few years back. as we, if you followed our trajectory, we're a growing foundation. And so it provided the opportunity for us to try some different strategies. And so we've been doing capacity building. We define capacity building very, very broadly, really is any activity that will take your nonprofit to its next level operationally, financially, programmatically, or organizationally. So extremely broad. So for small organizations, a capacity building may be just a grant to purchase financial software if you don't have QuickBooks or something. So maybe you don't have a formal audit where you're just reviewed, you have a compilation. Those are grants that we would consider capacity building. And if you're in that category, know that financial process improvements is one of our focus areas for 2023 and 2024. So if you don't have financial software, if you don't have an audit, that likely is going to be your best ask to us. If you're a large organization, and of course you've been audited for decades, and your funding sources require you to have a single line audit. If you get lots of federal money, you're like, well, what's in it for me? So for larger organizations, things that we're looking at are program expansion, facility expansion, strategic planning, succession planning, whatever it is that will take your organization to its next level. So to determine that one project that will take you to the next level, we need your help. We need your help to try to identify that. So our capacity building grants are awarded through a two-phase process. Phase one is just a narrative, 500 words that you submit. We too use Submittable like so many other people do. So if you have a Submittable account, I mean, you're good because you can apply to lots of organizations through your Submittable account. So in phase one, you'll be asked to provide a narrative, no less or no more than 500 words. And I'm going to throw something out that is important to us that we have learned through our 25 plus years of operating here in this community. And we'll call them the 5 C's of grant making. Your application needs to be clear, compelling, concise, cohesive, and comprehensive. Many of the panelists have already touched on those things. Compelling, passion, storytelling, Erica was talking about, that you want to be very, very compelling. You want to be very, Betty wants to know, like, if they give you $15,000, what exactly is that $15,000 going to buy? So you want to follow those 5 C's of grant making. I will tell you from experience, too often we receive narratives that honestly just appear to be a collection of paragraphs that were cut and pasted from the website or a flyer or brochure or whatever. They're not cohesive. I mean, it's some good information, but it's just told several different ways. And there's no benefit to that. When they're not cohesive, it makes it difficult for us to ascertain, like, what is it that they're asking for? Like, we understand all this stuff here and it's important information, but you only get 500 words. So let's do that. Let's be very clear in what you're asking for. Sometimes you get 500 words, and sometimes we get a narrative that's 1 sentence, 12 words. Probably not comprehensive if it's that short. Another thing that we get a lot, and this, again, I'm talking from experience. So another thing that we get a lot is you get the 500 words and there will be, 450 words about the history of the organization and 50 words about the project. I suggest that you flip that. Give us 50 words about your organization and 450 words about the project. And very honestly, we probably already know your history because we've been operating so long, and many of you we fund, so we already know your history. And if we don't know your history, we're going to go to your website to get that history. But if you don't have a website, or if your website is so antiquated that if I go there, it's inviting me to an event that happened 5 years ago because nobody in your organization knows how to upload it, and that's just talking from experience, and yes, you will know who you are in that. Then the grant that you should be asking for is a new website, right? So that's a capacity building grant. So like financial process improvements are one of our focus areas for 23 and 24. So are communications grants with a strong emphasis on websites. An added benefit of a website grant from the Community Foundation is it will put you in our website cohort. And that cohort will be an ongoing activity that will bring all of our website grantees together through Zoom and probably some in-person things too. You can learn how to use your very powerful new websites. And then so you can learn from the foundation and then learn from each other as well. So if you get through phase one, so that's the narrative portion, and there'll be a very quick turnaround into phase two. In phase two, you'll get the opportunity, of course, to provide additional information. But I would say in that you still need to remember the 5 C's of grant making: clear, compelling, concise, cohesive, and comprehensive. If you remember those things in your writing, you're going to be successful, not just with grant applications to the 6 organizations here, but to your other individual donors that you might go to. That's extremely important. And I will say also that it comes across my desk all the time about grant writing seminars, $250, $500. I've seen them like $2,000. And I mean, if you want to send somebody from your staff there, like there's no harm in it. But I will tell you that it's not rocket science. If you just follow the direction of the people that we're talking today, you're well on your way to that. When you're looking at grant writing, the first thing, research, don't waste anyone's time. Don't ask somebody for a capital project if they say in their criteria, we don't do capital. It doesn't make sense. Like you're wasting your time, you're wasting their time. So you want, in your research, you want to find the fit. Most important thing, follow directions. If it says, attach this, attach it. If it doesn't say attach, then don't attach it. Follow the directions. And of course, remember the 5 C's of effective grant writing. And I think you'll be successful not only with the organizations on this call today, but with other institutional funders and as well as your individual donors as well. You want to do that. One final thing I didn't mention before, and that is when you're being comprehensive, if you go to phase two, you're going to be asked to provide a comprehensive budget. So a comprehensive budget is just that. So if your project is $250,000 and you're asking us for 50, don't just list 50 on that's not your budget. Your budget's 250. And then, like others have said, if you know that Wash Fi is going to give you money, the Consol is going to give you, like whomever else is going to give you money, if you know that, or if you've applied to them, you're being considered, that is a comprehensive budget for that particular project. So in closing, we're really close on time. I want to thank all the panelists again for not telling me no back in November or something, whenever I asked you to do this. And then I'll turn it back to Alicia.
Thanks, Betsy. Well, I know we said we would have time for Q&A at the end, but we covered a lot of ground. And I will say, looking at the questions, I think that all the panelists in some capacity did address the questions that were posed. So if for some reason you had something a little more specific and we didn't get a chance to get to it, or maybe the thought comes to you, when you're driving home today, give the Community Foundation a call. We'll be happy to follow up with you on any questions that you may have. So again, I'd like to echo Betsy's remarks and thanking all of our panelists for participating in this conversation today. Thank all of our attendees. We really appreciate all that you do in the community and your hard work. As a reminder, this recording and the related content will be posted to the WCCF website, which is updated a lot. So please keep checking it, where there's always great information that we try to share on that. And just a plug for the next in our series, next month on March 14th, we'll be covering governing documents with WCCF trustee and Peacock Keller attorney Barb Graham. So look for an e-blast on that coming weeks. We hope you'll join us for that session later. Everybody have a wonderful day today. Thank you.